Welcome back to Chris in Retro. Earlier, I did a daily journal on TikTok, and I alluded to the fact I was going to do a longer form video tonight about some of that subject matter. This subject I'm going to speak about tonight is deeply personal in many ways, and it's a frustrating subject matter for me based on my belief system as well as how certain people behave. Unfortunately, it's been consistent since I was a child. I grew up in a church that had a split. If you're not a religious person, my parents were very actively involved in the church, and I've explained this on another video I did a long time ago on the show, but they were very involved in the church. And I remember sitting on a Sunday morning listening to these pastors and deacons fight publicly in front of a church as a young child. So up to that point, I was taught that God was love and God was all this other stuff. And, I was around the religious environment, the church environment. I hadn't made any real decisions about what my belief was on the whole thing, but I was there. I was exposed to it 3 days a week. We'd go Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday evenings. And if there was any other special program, we were there. If there was a missionary conference in town, my parents were going to host one of the missionaries. I mean, they were very involved in this church. And in a lot of ways, a lot of the reasons why the church was successful early on was because of them. Now, pride got in the way. We had some new pastors come in and they decided to do a land grab. We had old pastors there that decided they were going to keep things the way they were, and they just couldn't figure out a way to get along. In any business setting that I've been through in life, businesses work through that stuff. Apparently churches can't. And this church collapsed. It split. There was multiple factions out of that church, and they all became individual churches, and none of them were all that successful afterwards. Fast forward a few years later, I was at that time put into a Christian school because they were concerned about, my friend group and, how life was going to look for me if I was in a public school. So my parents were trying to keep me straight and narrow, but my grades were terrible. I was rejecting the whole thing. And I was in a Christian school that was tied to a church in a town close to us. And that church split and that school collapsed. So here I am as a child, and then as a teenager, seeing it happen at two different stages in my life. And it fortified my distaste for how people behave in religious environments. So you've heard me over and over again talk about how the fact I don't like religion, but I love God and I believe in God. And that's where my belief system comes from, is a personal relationship with God, not the religious construct around it. I'm not a religion fan. And that's where the foundation comes from me. Now, since I've done this show, I've had a couple examples of reasons that fortify that position. I'm going to share a few things with you. I've already had a video that one time when I was early on, it was actually one of my more popular videos, and I think it was just a timing issue. And there's two popular Christian or religious, I'm not sure what they call themselves, but they're Christian belief system professing YouTube channels. One is Ruslan XD, and the other one is Marcus Rogers. And they had a ongoing theological disagreement. So that's how Christians get away with publicly making fools of themselves and fighting and causing people that are seeking to not seek anymore. And they do that by these public displays of knowledge and pride rather than go in a room and hash it out in a room. These two decided to do it on their channel live. And so I reacted to this, and here's the part of the story that happened. This is the middle of the clip. I'll just share with you a few seconds of it. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing, but this is what I've seen through my childhood. This is what I'm now seeing here. And these two are very prominent Christian, faith-based people that believe in salvation and God and all this other stuff. And here's how they're behaving on their channel live.
I own it. That's the difference between you and me. I own it.
So here's the contention with this whole thing. Marcus has had some checkered decision-making, even as a publicly professing Christian, and in that system of ministries. So at least to me, you don't go out there just is on.
Celebrate with savings and get up to 35% off during Raymore and Flanagan's 4th of July
that
sale.
infidelity had the issue, and
You don't know.
acts that all the time.
I've explained it. Now, certain things I will not say, because I will never speak bad about my children's mother. You don't know what I was going through.
So
when I was in Afghanistan, you don't know what I was.
So anyway, we don't know the context. We don't know anything. So basically, that's not really. I picked a wrong part of the clip. But earlier in the clip, they were literally yelling over top of each other. Now, Marcus Rogers was on. If you look at the screen, he was the black guy on my right, and then Ruslan XD was on the left. Now, Ruslan, I have a problem with just because he's just very arrogant and he's all about himself. And Whether he believes the same thing or not, I don't know. But how he handles himself is pretty annoying to me, and unfortunate because his content can be pretty powerful. But this particular event, they went at each other, and I felt that Ruslan was in the wrong the way he handled it. I think Marcus handled it about the best he possibly could have, but it still led to some real distaste. And for somebody like me, who at the time when I was a child didn't believe in this stuff, and these men that supposedly were the personification of it were out there arguing in front of me as a kid, it really course corrected my thinking and made it so it wasn't really something I wanted. And as a result, I rejected all of it. Now here I'm all these years later, I'm fortified in what I believe to be true based on how my life has rebounded and the real relationship I have in that space that's outside of any religious construct. And then I see these two gentlemen acting this way. And so I did a video. And out of that video, there's a ton of comments that came through. I forget how many views I got it. Let me just check here real quick. I mean, for me, it was a lot of views. I had 5,800 views on it. There was 206 comments. And in those 206 comments, there was a lot of debate and a lot of haggling, a lot of nonsense, some really encouraging about my position on it and some really coming after me, in many cases taking sides in it. And that's exactly what consistently happens. And that's why churches split and people don't want anything to do with God, is because that's what they see all the time as this public debate. And they think they're doing their God-given right to test each other, and iron sharpens iron. Well, I got news for you. That type of iron and sharpen iron is more divisive than it is healing or helping anybody. And when you do it in public like that, it's a failed proposition, and it's completely against everything you believe in, even if your arrogance can't see through it. I'm going to show you one more thing. This happened just over the other day, and I mentioned it a couple times in here. I have the TikTok, and it's something that I do because it's kind of fun. And I like to be for me. It's encouraging to do for other people. So I'm going to share that with you guys. In theory. Just give me a second here. Okay. So this is a TikTok that I put up the other day. I'm going to play it. Hopefully you can hear it. So you get the idea. It is, I found that if I pray for God to move a mountain, I must be prepared to wake up next to a shovel. I love that statement. I got it from Black Rifle Coffee, I think is what they call themselves, off of LinkedIn. And I just thought it was a powerful statement. Now, everybody was largely supportive of it. And then somebody comes on there and makes some comment about that it's all God, and that we only have to have a seed of faith, and he'll take care of everything else. The context of what I was saying here, I don't agree with that. Of course, the Bible says it. All we have to have is a little faith, and sometimes that's all I've had. But it doesn't mean that we don't have work to do, especially in addiction. We have components of what we do to get better. And me as a Christian and believing in God, that gives me power and direction and something to do with the things I don't own. But for my addiction, there absolutely is a shovel that I got to pick up to help move my mountain, because he's going to show me what mountain to move, and he's going to require me to do the work so that the lessons that I learn are fortified. That's how my iron is getting sharpened, is by doing that work. It's not to say that I sit here with my arms folded and just hope God heals me from addiction and mental health issues. Of course he could, but that's not how it works. Not how it works. And so for somebody, when I had a lot of responses on here, which is a lot for me, I've had over 3,000 views, 3,200 views of this one, and with no boosting or anything. And I think 75 likes or something, and a bunch of comments on there, and like 15 or so comments on there, and all of it positive, because people are seeing this and recognizing that, there is work that we have to do, and we do recognize God as part of that, and we do have faith that he's going to guide us and teach us and help us through that. But again, it's the same notion. Why go on a TikTok and make that comment when you see the masses grabbing it and saying, look, this is encouraging to me? So I see social media fights. I've seen these types of debates divide families. In my family, there's been a division between a cousin of mine and an in-law, because they both are sure they know the Bible better than the other person. They get in very public arguments on Facebook. It's a bad look. People out there are actually needing a savior and needing somebody that's going to be guiding them spiritually. There's a spiritual component to our recovery. And when people are behaving like this, it's nothing that people want to see. And it's actually a really good distraction model for the enemy. It perpetuates stigma about Christianity and the self-righteous notion. So when you're on there and you believe that you got better theology than somebody, and you want to get into some big friggin' debate, recognize what the audience is actually hearing. Nobody's going, wow, he really knows what he's talking about. Nobody is. It's like, give me a freaking break. Who are you? Are you God? Do you know everything? That's how it comes across to somebody when they're in shoes I was in, when I was trying to figure out whether God was even real or not for me. Thank God, very broken people showed me him. A person that 3 months earlier was on his knees with a gun to his head and said, I can't live like this anymore, and got out of the street. That's the first person I really saw living God through. His name's Eric, and it changed my life. It wasn't somebody in a pulpit. This lordship, we have rank. It's almost like rankings and cockiness that people get in the church. And what I've noticed too is in the religious construct, you have a lot of knuckleheads that didn't do very good in school, but all of a sudden they start reading the Bible and coming up with some kind of interpretation. And all of a sudden they think that they're king, Captain Planet or whatever in the church, and they cause problems. Now, here's the thing. This video is largely negative, and I apologize for that, but it's really pointing out something that really was triggering for me as a child. And now I'm seeing just a small snippet of it here on TikTok. I've seen it on social media. I see it perpetually there. We're not in a world right now where we can take that position. If you've got some theological debate or some debate about your religion, or you got some debate about God or whatever else, take it offline and go in a side room and hash it out. Because if you actually really want to solve the problem, that's how to solve the problem. Otherwise, to me, you're just grandstanding. If you want to get on the mic and you want to give people hope and help, and as I do in this show, if somebody was living a high-risk life and their life completely burned to the ground and they're looking for hope, as mine did, I saw a God of hope. I saw one that I could lay my burdens at his feet. It was not a God that was preached at me because somebody really knew their Bible. And I was like, wow, I want to do that. Absolutely not. I didn't even like reading half the time. So it was never attractive to me. However, what I learned to be true in my most broken and dark places was the actual living presence of a king. It was way different than anything somebody getting into a debate on TikTok or YouTube or whatever else, and me going, oh, wow, you're right. I'm going to follow that message. It doesn't work that way for me, and it probably doesn't for most people in my community. I appreciate you guys bearing with me on this message tonight because, I wonder what's the point? Like, what is trying to be accomplished when people get on social media or they get on TV or they get in the pulpit or they get in a church and they decide so vehemently that their point is so important to make that to hell with everybody that's listened to it. And maybe that person that's so broken that just needed to hear a message of hope. And maybe that message could be the thing that saved their life. How about just humbling ourselves before the process? There's this notion that if you speak of the hope that can be found in a king, that somehow you're Joel Osteen. A fraud, who he is a fraud, by the way, that everything's all positive. And if you believe in God, everything's going to go good for you. No, it's not. No, it's not. This last year has been one of the toughest years of my life. Believe it or not, it's been one of the toughest years of my life. And I very much believe in God, and I very much see him seated on his throne. I very much know for sure he's involved in my life, but for whatever reason, I've had to go through this season. Maybe it's a fortification season. Maybe there's lessons I haven't learned yet that I need to learn. I really don't know. What I know is that I'm going through it, and that there were things I've done that were not aligned with what he's looking for. There were things that I did allow myself to get derailed on, that I had to bring myself back in line. The season was a proving ground for me, and it was important for me, and it elevates my position in terms of what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. That trial, that fire, that work is far more influential in my belief system and what I believe to be true about God and my seeing him through the storm than any two men debating any portion of the Bible. It's not necessary to be doing in public. If there's something else you're trying to debate, do it in the privacy of whatever room you're in and leave us out of it. That'd be great. What you can do is come to us and understand that God is one heck of a fellow traveler. And in Psalm 46, he's your refuge and strength. And when we're so broken and burnt to the ground, we have no hope and we don't know what to do. And we don't even think God even wants to look at us because why would he? We're just trash. And all of a sudden we read a verse in a jail cell and it says, I'm Psalm 46. Hello, I got you. I got you. I'm going to hold you. And I believed. And I believe still. Because I've seen it through the storm. When all else is lost, I know for sure I'm being held. I've got evidence of it over and over again. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in tonight. This is something that's a little bit more passionate. I'll try to be more positive in the future on certain things. But this is something that's really struck me because as a child, I was turned away. My position on God and church was completely turned away based on the first split with grown men arguing. And then the second split with grown men arguing as a teenager just completely drove me away. And then to see this behavior ongoing through my adult life after I've gone through the fire of homelessness and addiction and all this other stuff and got my life back and knowing full well who helped me get my feet back underneath, and that was God. That is my spiritual component. And to see men behaving like this when I honestly don't know that they even understand what it feels like to be delivered from those messes. And perhaps their position would change. Maybe they'd be humbled a little bit. Wouldn't wish it on anybody, but maybe that's just what's needed. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Please like and subscribe, comment. If you got some comments about what I'm saying, if you disagree, fine, put it in there. This is the platform to do it now. It's kind of counterintuitive to what I've been saying here, but let's talk. Let's hash this thing out here on here if you want to. Keep it kind and polite. Don't come in here as Lord of everything. Just understand that we can have those conversations in a respectful way, in a way that's going to help people see hope and help and find new ways to live their lives better than what they currently do. Check out the TikTok channel. I mean, I've been getting a lot of community standards violations. I found out what that's all about. They think that I'm using AI to generate my TikToks, and that's not true at all. They're all made through Canva. But I think I'm using AI, and I'm not. So I got to figure out how to crack the code on that one. But anyway, check it out. There's some stuff out there that people have been encouraged by. Hope you're encouraged by it too. It's just some daily shots in the arm to keep you guys moving in the right direction. And between now and the next time we talk, I'm going to stay out of trouble. I hope you do too.